England is dealing with a housing crisis, which you can see with two key metrics. The cost of a house as a multiple of typical wage is at the highest that it's been in recent history, and the home ownership rate is dropping while people choose to rent instead. But this study brings a terrifying third metric onto the scene. England's current plan to solve the housing crisis means that they'll blow past their carbon budget by 2050, which will make climate change even worse. But that's just a British problem, right? So the rest of us get to be all high and mighty while they scramble to fix their issues. Unfortunately, as I read the study, all of the problems that England is encountering sound exactly like the issues that the rest of us are having. So, let's dive into this study, see what the issues are, and what they suggest as some fixes. Hi, I'm Nathan, someone who spends too much money on avocado toast, which means that I can't afford a house. And this is Save Money, Save the Planet. This study comes up with 3 different scenarios of what the future for the British housing market may look like, and the first scenario is just exactly what the current plans already are. As you can see from this graph, the plans result in England going over their cumulative carbon budget, which means that they aren't in line with the 1.5 Celsius goal. So yeah, that's a problem. This graph also does a fantastic job of depicting where the issue is coming from. It's not the new homes which are creating all of these emissions, it's the already existing stock. After all, adding 300,000 homes a year means that you'll add, 11 million homes by 2050? Which does sound like a big number, until you look at a year like, 2018. In 2018, England already had 24.1 million homes. So that's 24.1 million homes which are built to significantly different standards than the 11 million homes being added, and therefore have way worse emissions. So that's the problem that the next 2 scenarios will try to address. Now in the second scenario, the researchers assume that existing housing will be retrofitted to 2018 standards. Haha, you thought I pulled that year out of my butt, didn't you? Nope, had a plan all along. Anyways, their goal is to complete this by 2035. So, what effect does it have? Well, first off, they no longer blow past the cumulative carbon budget for the country, which is definitely a good thing. But the emissions of houses still aren't in line with the net zero pathway for the housing sector. Okay, I just realized, it probably sounds like I'm making up terms just so that I can bash Britain. After all, I am American, and we fought a whole war over our right to badmouth the UK. Or at least, I think that's what that war was about. Well, regardless, that's not what I'm doing here. Let me explain it in terms of swimming. Let's say for one reason or another, we're swimming away from the shore, which naturally means that we're at risk of drowning. Well, the carbon budget is a measure of how far from the shore we have swum. The farther we go, the more of a dire situation we're in. Now the net zero pathways number is a measure of how good we do at treading water once we stop. If we don't meet the net zero pathways number, then we're essentially slowly sinking farther and farther into the water and drowning. But if we're strong enough at treading water, then we don't move at all. Which gives us time to decide how we can go about turning around and finally swimming back to shore. So, did that help you understand the terms? Well, how would I know? You haven't even hit the like button. Oh, thanks. So what this study is telling us is that scenario number 2 does a good job at stopping close enough to shore that we're not in too much trouble, but it does a bad job of treading water once we're stopped, so we still drown regardless. And that brings us to the third scenario. There are 3 main changes in this one. First, housing construction rates decrease until they're finally at a net zero level by 2035. Next, there are no homes left vacant. And finally, all existing homes are retrofit to be net zero emissions by 2050. Yeah, I know, it's not an easy scenario. But don't forget, scenarios 1 and 2, they were easy and we ended up drowning. So what are the results here? It ends up being under budget and it's in line with the net zero pathway goal. So now we just have the incredibly hard task of turning scenario number 3 into a reality. The study has 4 main categories of solutions, but in the interest of not making this video 1 hour long, I'll only be deep diving into the first one. It's more efficient use of the existing housing stock. Why pick this one? I guess it hits a little close to home since my wife and I have been thinking about buying a house lately, but there's just one teeny tiny little problem. Homes are so god-awful expensive these days. Like, seriously, I swear that I saw a cardboard box on Skid Row going for $400,000 the other day. But as I read through these potential solutions, then I see how they could help drive up the available stock of homes, which in turn would hopefully reduce competition, which would drive down prices. So let's get into it. First, they work to correct the 3 main issues which result in homes being unoccupied. The first thing that the study takes aim at is how much extra housing stock currently exists in England. They estimate this to be 1.2 million more homes than households. Oh, okay. Before I get too far into this, I do need to point out that there are caveats to this number and it might not be 100% correct. It's all explained super well in this video by Oda Urbanity. Basically, some of the number is explained by houses in the middle of selling and temporary housing being used by students at university. That being said, I still think that this study has a great point simply because current laws actually incentivize owning a second home. So this study says to not do that and instead figure out a way to actively discourage second home ownership. The number proposed by the study is a 25% surcharge on the property tax for a second home. Maybe this won't actually get 1.2 million more homes on the market in England, but there's a lot of great numbers between 0 and 1.2 million. I would be happy with many of them. Next, they go after foreign investors who are buying up new builds in London and then leaving a whopping 42% of them unoccupied. Their solution to this is to apply a transactional tax on out-of-town purchases with the caveat that the money generated by this tax is directly invested in the most poor and disadvantaged citizens. The third and final way that homes are left unoccupied can be from much more innocent things, such as deceased homeowners. Obviously, most of these homes make their way back onto the market through the will of the original homeowner, but that doesn't always happen, and the study references data of 650,000 homes in England falling into this category. Here, the researchers suggest that the powers of local government be enhanced so that they can take control of these homes and get them back to use. Another huge issue which prevents houses from being fully utilized is the inability of many homeowners to downsize when they decide that they're ready. The researchers suggest increasing the amount of cash incentives which are offered to owners who fall into this category. That way, it can make it a financially good decision for them to vacate a property which they're no longer fully utilizing. And if that's unable to work, then the study looks to create some type of a cap and trade system for housing stock, where a normal amount of housing space needed per person is determined. Then citizens who own more than that have to pay extra money, which is then distributed to citizens who own less than that amount. Now, I do have a question for you though. Have you seen any other examples of how countries are doing an excellent job of using all existing housing stock? Well, don't keep those secrets to yourself. Comment down below. Share it with the rest of us. But all of those ideas, they're just government policy. And if you're a homeowner, or soon will be one, then it might not help you much. In fact, you may be curious how to help by removing some of the emissions from your own home. Well, you might remember in my video about why you should be a YIMBY when I pointed to the amazing book called Drawdown. They actually have suggestions which will save you money and cut your emissions. Here they are. First, installing a green roof or a cool roof can reduce cooling and heating needs of your home throughout the year. Second, you can convert all of your light into LEDs. But honestly, I'd be surprised if many of you haven't done that already. Third, you can implement heat pumps throughout your home so they can handle your AC, heat, and water heating at a minimum. Fourth, you can get an electric oven along with an induction stovetop so that you stop using natural gas when cooking. Fifth, you can invest in smart glass, which can darken whenever the sun is stronger to prevent it from overtaxing your AC. Or you could also just get an automated blind system, which frankly might be cheaper. Sixth, you can get a smart thermostat, which will help adjust your settings for optimal efficiency throughout the day. And finally, seventh, You can replace your insulation if needed. Alright, I'll be back next month with another video. Now go make a difference today.